Hello, all my fine YouTube friends. It is Prof Sales coming at you with a video, and this video is about shoes and probably some other things too, but we will jump into that just in a moment. Just want to welcome everybody to the show. If you haven't been here before on our channel, we talk a lot about the why, how we do things, how we, the why of how we sell, as well as the what, and all those sorts of things. But I really like to talk about mindset. But this particular video is about my shoe journey. Some of you guys know that I started a journey towards 500 listings of shoes on eBay. And for the most part, these are pre-owned shoes and so on. So, let's keep it in context. It's not all new shoes. So it's going to be a little different, obviously. I know some of you guys out there only want to sell new shoes, which is cool. I like to sell new shoes as well. It's just hard to find them for the right price sometimes, and you have to invest more capital. But for the most part, these 500 shoes are going to be pre-owned shoes, ones that you can find in thrift stores, garage sales, estate sales, and these are all the kinds of places where I look for inventory in general. So with that being said, hopefully let me know in the chat, guys, if you guys can hear me okay or audio's all right. I never really know until you tell me. You can see too, I have the little lower third with my name and so on. There's some helpful links in the video description. So if you click on the description of this video, there's a bunch of links to a lot of stuff there. Links to the spreadsheet, links to associates, links to stuff that we use in our business, all kinds of things. So check that out when you get a moment. And also there's links on there to my Instagram account and Twitter and all that nonsense. I call it nonsense, but social media, right? It's the world we live in. So some people are starting to fill up in the room, which is great. You can type questions as we go, guys, about shoes. I've kind of got sort of a set format for these shoe videos that I've been doing, and I'm going to kind of stick with that. I think so far it's a fairly effective way to demonstrate, this shoe journey, if you will. And it has been a journey for sure. So we will jump right into it. All right. So as I mentioned a moment ago, the goal of this video series, I guess, is to document this journey. And the journey is to have 500 listings on eBay that are shoe listings, at least 500, by the end of 2017, which is about 6 months from now. So I've come into this as knowing virtually nothing about shoes, other than the fact that you wear them on your feet. And they are, a common item on eBay, but probably not as common as other types of clothing. For instance, I would say other types of clothing, just in terms of the market segment, is larger. Now, there are a lot of shoes on there, don't get me wrong, but I think it's definitely more of a niche for people, especially the pre-owned shoes, because pre-owned shoes take a special kind of eye to figure out what will sell, what's in good condition, what size are out there. I mean, it's different than regular clothing. I mean, I don't want this to sound trite, but you could buy so many types of shirts, men's shirts, women's shirts. And by shirts, I mean button downs. I don't mean maybe t-shirts, and sell them for 12 bucks all day long on eBay. And brands would matter some. Now, some higher end brands would go even more than that, but there's lots of average brands of shirts, for instance, button down shirts, men's and women's, that you could sell for 12 bucks, say free shipping. And if you're getting them at the bins for, 60, 75 cents a shirt, you're going to make some profit on them. Not a huge profit, but you're going to make some profit on them for sure. They're going to ship first class. Shoes are a little different. Shoes will actually sell for quite a bit more than that, but man, there's a lot of shoes out there. And shoes, guys, if you think about it, we wear them on our feet. We work in them. We play in them. I read a stat the other day. I see Tino's in the chat. Maybe he can confirm this stat. Maybe he's read it. We spend half of our life in shoes. Half. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I'm sitting here looking at my shoes over there, and I'm thinking I see 3 pair on the shoe rack. Karin and Ben have quite a few more than that over there, by the way. And I think I own maybe another 3 pair. But I'm always wearing there's 2 of those that I wear probably 95% of the time. So they get a lot of wear. So when anytime you get into things with a lot of wear, guys, you got to be able to check condition, to check, you know, if it's worn out, if it's got wear spots, if it's coming apart. So that's a big part of shoes that I've already realized that I did not anticipate, you know, just understanding condition. And it's critical to some of these shoe sales, especially when you get in the higher end ones for sure. Carter says pics or it never happened. I could take a pic. I could take a screenshot right now. But let me share some of the spreadsheet results, guys, and show you where I'm at to date with this shoe listing process. So let me click over there and get to that. So we will go, oh, that's not shoes, that's something else. All right, so we will go to my shoe results. So I'm gonna do a quick screen share and show you where we're at to date. All right, so you should be able to see that this is the start of the month. I had 120 listed. Actually, that's actually current right now, I believe, now that I think about it. I've only sold 5 this month. I'm kind of concerned about that. I'm not really sure why my results are so low. I definitely haven't gotten as many listed as I want. I've listed 27 this month. It's just been kind of other things have come up. No excuse, though. Just haven't gotten, I have not listed, I mean, last month I listed 80. This month I've listed 27. So I need to get on the stick there and get more listed. My listing goal is 100, which works out to about 25 a week. So I got a long ways to go with that 73. Daily sell through right now. This will get like a more real number as the month goes on. Right now it's 0.14%. And, you know, the goal is to hit a nice 1% because it kind of labels you to figure out, you know, what your revenues are going to be. So average sell time is 36 days. So now this has crept up quite a bit from the 12 days back in May. And I guess, guys, the reason this has gone up is because I listed so many shoes in May compared to April and March. So with more listed, obviously you're gonna sell more, but you're not gonna sell as many as quickly as quick, you know. So it's kind of understandable this went up. I'm not sure if this is a real number yet. We'll see as we go throughout the year how it fluctuates. Average sale price is a little bit lower this month, $27.50, with shipping income of $845. And so that's made my net this month at $1866, which has dropped a good bit from the last 3 months. So I'm thinking that that is probably a little bit lower than normal, probably just because it's been pushed down by a few lower ones. And the profit so far on shoes has been $93 this month after selling cost and cost of goods and all that good stuff, shipping costs. Gross margin. So I've started tracking this. So my gross margin, and the way I'm figuring this, guys, it's not a true gross margin, but it's pretty close. And all it is this, you take like these 2 numbers and add them together, how much you sold it for and how much shipping you made. And then you divide this number into that or by that. So 1866 divided by whatever this is, 33.95, 35.95. So that's where I'm getting, you know, these numbers from, but we'll see if that kind of holds up. I think shoes are going to be, guys, over a 50% gross margin item. You can see these first 4 months. It's been really good. And when I compare that to, say, jeans are lower. I mean, jeans margin are definitely lower. You see here, jeans margin is down here in the 40s. 1 month it was 50, but really around in the mid 40s. So I would say shoes is going to be a good 10% higher margin number. So if you think about selling, I don't know, you know, 500, 1,000 pair of shoes in a year, whatever you're going to sell, that adds up to a lot of money. And they're selling for a higher net as well. So it's a lot more dollars. Like you can see my average net per shoe here is about 20 something. Actually, it's got the average. I can't quite see it because of where the sheet is. But, you know, jeans is only more like a, you know, $12, $13 net per jean, and whereas shoes is more like over 20, even with the slow months so far. So, you know, I'm still happy about the results, but I definitely need to get more listings up and definitely want to see some more sell through for sure. Let me show you guys a couple graphs real quick. Just so you can see it graphically, this is the average sell time in shoes. So you can see this is March April, May, and here's the big jump up in June. We'll see if that holds, if that ends up being a real, I mean, even a month, guys, 35 days, 36 days to sell an item is not bad. I mean, I know there's people out there who like the quick flip and, hey, I want to sell something I want to sell it 10 days after I get it. But I don't think that's a realistic number for a lot of clothing items. I feel like if people were tracking their average sell time, it would be a lot higher than that for most people. Unless you just accept a really low margin, a really low net per item. I think, you know, it's got to be a bit higher than that. I mean, it takes a little while for your listing to get indexed by Google, by eBay. eBay says they do it right away. You know, maybe they do, maybe they don't. I mean, but to sell things in like 2, 3, 4, 5 days is really quick turnaround. I think a month is probably a more reasonable time frame to shoot for. And my average sale price, you can see here, was 30. And then right here, it dropped down to below that. Now, here was about 33 last month, and this month it's a bit lower. We'll see if that holds as well. Again, these are short-term results, guys. I'm like 90 days into this, so, you know, take from it what you want. We'll see. So hopefully that all made sense. If it didn't, go back and rewatch it. All right, so lots of people watching, 52 people. Thanks for that. Hit the like button, guys, if you're enjoying. I do appreciate it. All right. So let me show, I'm gonna talk to you guys about, I'm gonna show you 3 solds that I had over the past couple weeks too. I'm kind of mixing these in. They're not all necessarily sold items, sold shoes since the last time we spoke, which was last Wednesday. So I kind of mixed those in. I don't know. I mean, you know, some of these might have sold 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever. It doesn't matter. So I don't want you to think, oh, these are sold since the last time we spoke necessarily. They may have been sold even before that. But I think it's interesting to show and talk about them because it's brands and so on. So let me pull that up for you guys, and we'll do yet another screen share. So let me get over to that. And these are some cool, I like this first pair a lot. I think they're just a nice pair of shoes to sell. All right, so this first pair was a pair of Dansko loafers, slip-on, black leather. These were size, they had the European size on them, 45, which is a men's 12 roughly. They sold for $49.95, which is really good. Shipping was a little bit more than $6.83, I think. This just shows, you know, what it would have been. And you can see, guys, let me move this screen over just a little bit. You guys can see, like, this was a nice shoe. I mean, they polished up. I love solid color shoes like this because if they don't have scratches and scuffs on them, they really clean up well. I mean, they just look, I mean, these shoes look fairly new. I mean, you can tell there's a little bit of crease in this one, but man, you know, they polished up really well. The toe box has a little bit of wear on it, a little bit of spotting. But, you know, when you take great photos, guys, you can show all this stuff. So when your buyer gets it or looks at it, they can determine, you know, hey, is that a deal breaker? Is it something I want? I mean, these are black shoes. They're not going to show crazy amounts of dirt unless it's just something really egregious. But I think the toe box on these was pretty good. The heel was in pretty good shape. Had this one little scratch here you see on the left one. I think I even mentioned that in the listing. I can't remember. I mean, a little bit of wear, but, you know, and then I like this shot always too. It shows the inside of where the heel goes. So I think people like that shot. They like just seeing kind of the wear. And you can tell these shoes were fairly taken care of. A little bit of wear around the edges there. But the bottom, I think, is always interesting too. It kind of gives you an idea how much they've been worn and wear. You can tell this is not a lot of wear on these. $49.95, great price on these. They were heavy to ship, unfortunately, so I could not really do much for shipping for the buyer. But you know, they were a great sale. Really like Danskos when you find the right ones. These clogs, or not clogs, excuse me, these loafers like this, loafer / clog. I don't know, Tino, you're in the chat. What would you call this? But I think they are always a good pickup, especially when you can find them in good shape. Next up is a pair of Skechers Shape Up Work shoes. I love the word work in a title, guys, because I think anybody searching for that is going to find your listing potentially because you've got the word work in there. And a lot of people wear these for work because, you know, this whole shape up idea, this elevated sole, would, you know, almost effectively, I guess you'd be doing like a calf raise every time you walk. I guess that's the idea behind it. I don't really know what their scientific, you know, reasoning was. But, you know, people can wear them at work, and theoretically, you know, they're kind of getting a workout whenever they walk. These were a nice sale. They were heavy as well. You can see, I'm going to show you the toe box shot. There is definitely some wear on the toe box, some cuts you can see there on that one. And, you know, but you just disclose it. You take a good photo, and then people decide. You know, they decide if they want or not. That's all you can ever do. The heels or the back, not too bad. Pretty good shape. Let's see. And the inside as well, you can tell, you know, a little bit of wear, but nothing crazy. You can see the label's worn out. I always take a label shot. I kind of screwed this up. This should have been turned 90 degrees so it could be more readable. And then the bottom too, I did a little bit of cleaning on these, and you can see it was still a little wet. Wow, what a rookie, this guy. But the bottom was in pretty good shape and not a tremendous amount of wear. So also $49.95, so great sale on those. They were heavy too, unfortunately. So I think I took a best offer on these maybe for 40 actually, now that I think about it. I don't remember off the top of my head, but. And then last but not least, these actually sold, I think yesterday, or maybe it was today. It was today, actually. These are Kenneth Cole Reaction Oxford Square. Kenneth Cole's a nice, just simple dress loafer. These shoes, I love these shoes because you can wear these. I mean, these are very casual, but they're also dressy enough that unless you're going to like a black tie event, like a tux event, you can wear these. Now they do have a little bit of wear there. You can see on the right one on the toe, but I polished it up best I could. Did I best I could to alleviate those scratches. You know, and the toe box too. You can see it. It's clearly there. I mean, you know, not hide anything from anybody. The great thing about these is I think I took a best offer on these as well. Now that I think about it, and they were. I think I took 35. Now, this is where I might differ with some shoe sellers. I did fast and free on these free shipping. And the reason was because I know you probably don't think about looking at these shoes, but they actually fit in a padded flat rate, which is interesting. So I knew what my shipping costs would be. So I was okay going ahead and, you know, putting in there that, hey, it's free shipping. So padded flat rate, you're going to get them pretty quickly. And, you know, it's a padded envelope. I turned them sole to sole, basically. So the soles were touching each other. So hopefully they don't get scratched in transit. And it's a little bit of a tight fit in there, but it's a padded envelope. I don't know. I mean, so far I haven't had an issue with that. Some of you guys might not like that and think, oh, you should ship in a box. But they would have been much more expensive to ship by a box. They would have been about, instead of $630, they would have cost about $10.25 to ship in a box. It would have been much more expensive by weight. So that's what I did. So good sale on those, and you know, not too bad. All right. So Tina says, way to go using the flat rate. Yeah, I mean, I think you can use free shipping if you can fit. A lot of women's shoes, guys, I found will fit in padded flat rates. I mean, if you think about a padded flat rate, you know, this is your size. And that doesn't look that big, but it actually is. And a lot of shoes, a lot of women's shoes, you know, women's average size is probably what, 7 or so, 8. A lot of those will fit in here unless they're tall. You know, sandals, clogs, mules, they'll fit in here. Even some tennis shoes size will fit in here. And I don't know. I mean, I think it depends on the show. Somebody said they're scared of the backs being broken. I think if it's like I don't have a good one here in front of me. If it's like a flat or a sandal or a flip flop, you know, I don't know. I don't know if it'll be too much of a issue. But Tino says he wraps them before he puts them in, and that keeps them from scuffing. Yeah, actually, I'm turned sole to sole. You know, so they were, you know, they were like this in the envelope, or actually, they were like this in the envelope. So I don't know. Could they still get scratched? I guess it's possible, but they weren't going to move. I can tell you that. But yeah, I mean, it depends on the shoe too, guys. Like, if you're selling, a $200 pair of Gucci's, you probably should put them in a box, wrap them up, bubble wrap. On the other hand, if you're selling a $20 pair of sandals, I don't know. I just think you don't have to go quite so crazy on them. I mean, they're shoes, but they, people expect them to have wear on them. And it's funny because the pair I was just showing you, the Kenneth Coles, when I first sold them and I got them, I tried to put them in the flat rate like this. And I went, these aren't really going to fit. Like, they would have fit, but it would have been really tough. And I went, why did I put padded flat rate? Wait, why did I put free shipping on these? I must have been thinking they would go padded flat rate. So then I thought, oh, I had them turned, this way. So that then they went in like that. Whole different story. So the finished surface wasn't touching each other. It's just touching the padding inside the envelope. I don't know. Will they get scuffed? I don't think so, but it's possible. And if they do and they start have issues with it, it's a live and learn moment. But anyway, so one other thing too, I want to tell you guys, and we'll open up for some Q&A here coming up soon. So if you got questions, go ahead and ask them. Type the word question or some question marks in the chat box. But I'm also running sales. Now, one thing I did on my shoe listings, this is what I did, guys. I don't know what you think of this. So my shoes, I have a store and they're categorized by like men's shoes, and then under men's shoes are subcategories of all eBay's. I just use eBay subcategories. Categories. Man, I'm saying that weird. I usually say categories. That was strange. It's like I got British there for a moment. But I put in there the subcategories that eBay uses under the whole big shoe, description. And then I do the same thing on women's. So women's and men's. But the cool thing about that is, like, if you have a men's and women's shoe, big category, when you do your store categories, you can do a sale, and you could just do a sale just on women's shoes. You can send out your newsletter. You could do one just on men's shoes. You could technically even break it down even further if you wanted, and do it on just a part of it. So having those categories in your store, I think, is an advantage when you go to run a sale. It's obviously an advantage too, that when people search for something, they're like, oh, I wonder if this seller has any tennis shoes, or they have any ballet flats or whatever. Then you've got a category in there where they'll look, where it's logical. And I think that's got a great advantage too. So I've been making sure that my items are listed by the correct category and subcategory. You don't know. This is the thing. I mean, you don't know how people are finding your items, or if they're finding your items. So you've got to give them every possible tool to find them. And I'll tell you, it's a pain in the butt, to be honest. It's one of those things where I think as resellers, we get a little lazy. We think, I'm just going to write a great title and throw it up there. All right, fair enough. However, if you can subcategorize or categorize that item in your store too, so that somebody who's maybe looking for something else in your store and sees, oh, they have shoes. I was here looking for a pair of jeans. I had no idea. Then they go over and they find your pair of shoes and they look, oh, they've got men's shoes. I was looking for men's shoes. Boom. I think that's important too. And it's something I've probably slacked on in the past. So what I've been doing is I went through, because I realized I still have about 250 listings that are categorized as other in my store. They're not categorized. So what I do is every day I go in and I'll try to do like 20, 30, 40 of them, and just start making sure I go in and I can bulk edit. I can use, all right, here's 8 women's jeans listings, select, bulk edit, change the store category to women's jeans, done. All right, here's 3 pair of men's shoes, select all 3, bulk edit, store category, men's shoes, whatever they are. So, you can do that as you go through. And so it's not such a big lift if you haven't been doing that with your store categories. Someone said breaking them down by size is important. Yeah, that could be. I haven't really explored that. I'm not sure if Tino, I don't know if you're still here. Do you break it down by size as well? That seems like a good idea. So maybe I need to do that as well, just to, as I start, especially as I start growing, you know, when you only got like 30 or 40 pair of shoes and somebody, or 50 pair maybe even, and somebody can go and look and they can say, all right, I can look at all these really quickly. But when you've got hundreds, you know, every little bit helps. And people obviously shop brand and size, just like they do in a lot of clothing, but they shop brand and size when they shop shoes, right? I mean, you don't care about a pair of size 10 shoes if you wear an 8. You know, you need an 8, so you're going to look for those. So that makes a lot of sense. So I'll definitely need to explore that too, probably creating some subcategories there around sizing as well. Makes a lot of sense. So great tip there. All right, so for the next week, we will, you know, my goals are to get at least 25 more pair of shoes up. I think that's probably about what I have here sourcing wise, maybe 25 pair or so, and get those listed, see if that helps the sales. I mean, you know, it's the dog days of summer coming, guys. This is the crappiest time for resellers of clothing a lot of times. And I fully expect that sales are not going to be great. So, you know, you got to do all the little things and the big things, I think, to impact your sales. Obviously, listing things is a big thing. We know it sort of primes the engine, so to speak. Plus, it keeps you in the game. It keeps you getting new product out there. And, you know, that's important for sure. I think the little things like maybe putting my shoes in categories of sizes, like we were just talking about, running sales is maybe a big thing. So all those kinds of things are important. And that way you can, you know, just give yourself every chance to succeed. And I can honestly say, I don't know about you guys, but there's never a week that goes by in this game where I get to the end of the week and I go, I did everything I could have this week to make myself, or to give myself every chance of success. I've never said that at the end of a week, never once. I may have said some weeks I did a lot, or some weeks I did a little, or some weeks I did sort of in the middle, but I've never said I did it all, because there's always things you can do. And I think that's important. You always got to have an eye to the future, an eye towards improving, an eye towards becoming better at your craft. And and this is a craft, guys. I mean, nobody has mastered reselling. Nobody's even mastered necessarily one type of reselling. There's so many different ways to do this, so many different ways to get in this game and to make profit, to run a great business, to improve your results. I just think that, you know, you have to always keep striving and going towards that. So, you know, keep that in mind, you know, so that's some of the things are on tap for next week. And, you know, going to keep struggling at it, keep grinding away at it. I mean, that's all there is, right? I mean, there's no other way to look at it. There is no really giving up. There's just getting better and giving more and giving differently every week. You know, maybe that's what it is. They're not giving up. They're just giving more, giving a better effort. So that's kind of where I'm at with shoes and so on. I mean, you know, I look at too that this is the time. Somebody said this the other day, one of the other resellers in the community, I don't remember who it was, but you know, you're building right now. If you're a clothing reseller, you're building for the fall. I mean, August and September, especially September, is going to be a whole nother story, guys, especially if you're a clothing reseller. I mean, people will be hitting back to school. They'll already be in school. They'll start thinking about new outfits and old outfits. And before you know it, it will be the Christmas season. Sorry, I have this cat outside my window and just started meowing. It's freaking me out. I'm like, where's that coming from? I don't know if you guys could hear it or not, but it's pretty funny. So, you know, if you can get ready now and you can have all these listings up, you can have your stores built out, you can have your categories right, you can have your sales structure, your sales strategy in place, you can have perfected your craft in these slower months when you had more time because you weren't spending so much time on the sourcing and the packing and the shipping. I mean, that's what you do, guys. I mean, I think that's what you do. You do those things now in the slow season, so that when the fast season comes, then you'll be ready to blow it out. You know, and that's what I'm looking towards as well. Like I fully expect, you know, shoe sales will be greater in the fall. jean sales will be greater in the fall. Like all these things will improve because that's what happens. It's a cycle. And not many people will be on the Facebook groups or the YouTube channels talking about, oh man, my sales are so slow. Like if your sales are slow in that time, you need to seriously rethink your strategy or what's going on in your business, because something is not working right. Like that's the time they should be busiest. About from middle of September all the way really into January. It's pretty busy. And like I said, mine tends to peak in October. But we'll see if that happens this year or not. Maybe it'll even peak in November. It sort of peaked in like late October, early November, I guess, if you looked at it on a week by week basis. So anyway, all right. So if you have questions, guys, about shoes or anything else, I'm open to them. If somebody asked a question earlier, please re-ask it. I may have missed it. It can be about shoes, but can also be about just reselling in general or anything else. Could be about our survival story Car and I had last night at the concert we went to, where we thought we were going to die, which was pretty funny. Maybe not funny. It wasn't funny at the time, but afterwards it's like, that was kind of a cool experience. Sort of not ever need to do that again. Let's see here. Do people really buy used clothing during those times? Sarah asked, I'm not sure what times you mean, Sarah, but yeah, they do buy them during those times. In the fall, I think what happens is that people start gearing towards Christmas and they get in the spending mode. It's kind of like we're conditioned to that. You know, retailers try to blow it out too. Of course they do. They buy used clothing right along with new clothing. You kind of get the benefit of that Christmas push, that consumer spending. And yeah, it does get busier during those times. I expect shoes will be somewhat busier too. I'm not sure, but we'll see. But absolutely they do. Harlan says, I've got a lot of suits and blazers. Fall will be strong. Yeah, I think so, Harlan. Now, I'm not a super knowledgeable suit and blazer seller, so I may not be the best giving advice there. But just in general, you know, nobody wants to think about wearing a suit in the summer. I mean, it's hot. You know, and if you're outside in 90 degrees and you got a suit on, you're usually not the happiest camper in the world. But in the fall, events get scheduled and so on, formal events sometimes. Or there's just more opportunity for it, I think, just in the way, you know, people look at the weather, it gets a little chillier. It's not such a big deal. If you wear a suit to work, not many people do these days. You might be more apt to do that in the fall and winter when it's colder. But I think it's just a mindset thing. And if anybody here is more of a suit seller, you could comment on that. Maybe not. I could be wrong about it, but I would just think in general it might be a little bit of a push in those times. Somebody asked what, yeah, it was like, yeah. Yeah, long story short, Car and I went to a concert last night. And it was a big amphitheater, which had a big covered section, and then there was lawn seating out behind that, but it was all out in the open. And right before the main act went on, this big thunderstorm rolled in, like out of nowhere. Man, this thing just came in. I mean, the skies grew dark and ominous. It was crazy. And, you know, we were probably a good 50 yards underneath the roof from the edge of the storm, but it's a big high ceiling. This ceiling's probably, you know, 75 feet high. It's pretty high. And, you know, they were holding off the show because there was lightning. There was a lot of lightning. I mean, it was a lot of lightning. There was none super close, but there were a few that were loud enough that, you know, it shook you. And there was this point, though, when the rain started blowing in from the side. And, you know, like I said, we're a good 50 yards from the edge of the roof. And it was coming in like we were getting rain on out in the storm. It was coming that far underneath. I almost think the wind and the rain were getting funneled, and the wind got up. I'm not an expert on wind speeds. I would guess that was probably a 35, 40 mile an hour straight wind at that point, which, you know, doesn't sound like a lot, but in the moment, it's pretty fast. And man, it was coming in. That wind was whipping. People were getting down. People were ducking down on the ground, you know, getting down and kind of ducking. And you didn't know if it was a tornado or what, honestly, coming. It was pretty black by that point. The sky was crazy. You couldn't see anything. And the wind just, this wasn't even like just a gust. I mean, this was just like a straight wind, just staying, you know, fast. And it was pretty scary. I mean, honestly, you're standing, water's like all around you, lightning's hitting everywhere. The wind is coming in, you know, as strong as you see it normally. I mean, I don't know about you guys. I'm not normally outside in a thunderstorm. But there for a few minutes, it was pretty scary. And so we were talking for cover. I mean, no joke. It was crazy. We didn't know what was going to happen. You know, I'm like, I'm going to start seeing, you know, the Wicked Witch of the West go by on her bike here in a minute, and Toto is going to go flying by. We thought it could be a tornado, honestly, is the way it came in. Like the wind just came in and didn't stop. It wasn't a gust. It was just like straight wind. It was probably just a thunderstorm, but it was nuts. All right, now's the time to buy suits. Yep, totally agree. Let's see. Picked up the MTV label jeans. Now how to market and capitalize on their rarity. Any suggestions? Yeah, put an MTV in the description, obviously. You know, it's a novelty item, I would think. Maybe there's a collector out there for them. I don't know if you'd want to put rare on them or vintage. I'm not sure how old they are, so they may not meet the quote-unquote definition of vintage. I think usually eBay wants you to be like 20 years old, and maybe they are. But yeah, that's pretty cool. And I would list them higher. I would go higher on the price. I would not list them basement price. You never know what somebody's going to want to pay for those. And it might be more of a collector's thing, or maybe somebody just really liked them. So let's see. I'm trying to catch up with the questions here. Harlow's put up 50 pair of shoes in the last couple of weeks. Man, that's great. I mean, it takes a little time for them to sort of propagate and get into the search. So, you know, don't sweat the sales guys too much. You got to give this a little time. There's a lot of patience involved with this and throwing a lot of bait out there until you get a bite sometimes. My computer crashed. When did that tornado happen? It was not a tornado. But man, I'm telling you, thunderstorms are no joke when you're caught in the middle of them. And we were surrounded by thousands of people. It wasn't like we could easily get it. There was no cover. I mean, there was nowhere to go. And we couldn't have gone anywhere even if we wanted to. You know, it wasn't like you could just suddenly run for cover. There was no cover. There's no cover in that place. I guess technically the bathrooms, but they would have held maybe 150 people, and then they would have been full. You know, and we were never gotten there. So it was not a great situation to be in. Let's see. Rhonda only sells new shoes with no wear. Yeah, I mean, that's a great way to do it, Rhonda. You know, the tricky part about new shoes is just getting the right supply and for the right price. Obviously, usually you're going to pay more for new shoes than you are pre-owned shoes, you know, all things being equal. And just getting enough supply to really, you know, max out a bunch of listings, whatever that means to you guys, and whether that's 10 or 50 or 100 or whatever it is, or 1,000. But yeah, new shoes are great if you can get them for sure, because you don't have the wear issue. You don't have authenticity issues or fake issues, depending on the brand. So new is definitely a great way to go if you can get them. And I would highly recommend that if you can. Let's see. Jason needs to rock a romper. There is no chance of that happening. Ever. No. Nope, not going to happen. The market is flooded with Danskos. Maybe. You know. The 70s shorts are back. No, I don't know about that. Let's see. It's hard to find shoes with minimal wear. Yeah, I kind of agree with that. You know, I look at it like minimal wear is very much in the eyes of the beholder sometimes. Now, obviously, if it's got a crack or, you know, something's ripped off of it, that's different. You know, it's missing an eyelet from the laces. But, wear is really subjective. And people, I mean, let's face it, guys, most of us who wear shoes that, like, if we have a pair of shoes that we wear often, that pair of shoes gets a lot of wear, and it's very difficult to keep it looking pristine. And most people are if you're wearing, it's a pair of shoes that you're wearing around, places, it's going to get wear on them. They're shoes. I mean, they're touching up against things. You're running into things. You're scuffing the bottom. You're catching them on the edges of, a shelf or a fixture or a door, whatever. So wear on a shoe is really, really subjective a lot of times. Now, if it's an expensive shoe that somebody's going to wear for certain occasions, that's different. If it's a pair of heels that you're going to wear on your wedding day, it's got to be pristine, obviously. But if it's a pair of shoes that you're going to wear to, bum around town, I mean, wear is really, really subjective to a lot of people. And, as long as there's not obvious defects, however you want to define those, I think a lot of times you can still sell even shoes with wear. I don't think that's a deal breaker for a lot of shoes. Tino might have a different take on that if he's still here too, but you just disclose it, guys. You disclose it. You take photos of it. You don't hide it. You don't try to pass the shoe off as something it's not. And then you let the buyer make a decision. And the buyer still might get the item and go, well, I know you had a photo of this, and I know you said this, but when I got it, it was more than I thought. That's going to happen sometimes. That's going to happen. Photos can't always tell the whole story. People don't always look at them. They don't always read descriptions. But you've done your job, I think, as a seller, when you take accurate photos that depict the condition of the item. And then, the buyer, they have all the information they need. Whether they choose to access it or not is a different story. And you can't do anything about that. I run the same thing with jeans all the time. Distressed jeans. When is it distressed and when is it a hole? I mean, that's a great question. Sometimes it's really hard to tell the difference. It started out as distressing, and then it became more of a hole. Well, who decides that? I don't know. Take a photograph. Let the buyer decide. They're the ones who, remember this, guys, they're the ones who are going to buy the item and wear it, not you. You're not wearing it. You're trying to sell it. So you don't have to fall in love with the condition of it or fall in hate with the condition of it. You just need to depict the condition and sell it, and let the buyer decide if the condition is a deal breaker or not. That's the way I feel about this stuff. We don't get to decide whether it would be good enough for us to wear. Now, I love it. If it's good enough for me to wear, because I have a really high standard for clothes for the most part, I'm pretty confident that most buyers aren't going to have any issue with it. But I know there are buyers who will buy things that have defects and flaws and issues with them. Sometimes they even want those. Nothing wrong with that. So I don't have to wear it. They have to wear it. So I just need to let them see what it's like. Flex those Danskos. Yeah, the soles are trash. Yeah, I always do. That hasn't been too much of an issue. I usually do that in the store, actually. I will do the, the whole, flex the sole test and see if it cracks anywhere, because you can't always see the crack very easily. And I usually do that right in the store. That way, I don't even pick it up if it has that. That's kind of a deal breaker for me with shoes, is if it has a cracked sole, because, that's going to cause an issue at some point for sure. And, I don't know. Maybe there's people who would still buy it, put a new sole on it. Maybe I would even put a new sole on if it was a high-end shoe, have a cobbler do it. But I tend to not even buy the majority of those, so. Sky makes a great point, says used is still cool in my opinion. They've been worn in. New shoes can be stiff. Yeah, that's a great point, Sky. Actually, that period when you're, look at this shoe. I mean, this is this mystery pair of wingtips. I'm still trying to figure out what the heck they are. But I guarantee you guys, when this shoe was brand new, it was stiff. It would have been stiff to wear. And not impossible. Like if this didn't fit you perfectly, I can see getting a blister back here at the heel. I mean, men's dress shoes are notorious. Like when you buy men's dress shoes and they're new and you're breaking them in, they're not necessarily the most comfortable thing. I mean, I tend not to wear men's dress shoes almost never now. I never have a reason to. It's like I've sworn them off forever. But they're not fun to wear. I don't like wearing them. And so getting a nice broken in shoe is not such a bad thing. I mean, it's someone's done the hard work for you. They've got the blisters to prove it. Let's see here. It's funny when jeans are listed as no holes, no stains, and they're distressed or destroyed. I know, right? It's like I've stopped, anything like that, DJ, on a pair of jeans that's got a lot of distressing or has holes in it. And actually, I've started doing this with a lot of my clothing items. I just say, see photographs for description or condition. See photographs for condition. And if you've taken accurate photographs of the item, let the buyer make a decision. I mean, because honestly, like say a pair of jeans has a hole like this big in them. Is that a big hole? Is that a medium-sized hole? Is that distressing? I don't know. But to you, it might mean one thing, and to somebody else, it means something totally different. But the problem is I can't quantify, what that is. So it's better for me just to say, hey, and sometimes if it's a hole like that, we'll put an item beside it to show the size of it. We'll put like a penny or quarter and say, hey, see the photos, see what you think. And then they can decide if it's a deal breaker or not. So I don't really, I just hate this idea of like trying to accurately describe an item with words. I mean, I don't know how you guys feel about that. Type in the chat if you feel the same or if you feel differently. I mean, that's cool too. But man, trying to accurately describe an item with words, a clothing item that's got some wear, so difficult. So difficult. Like your choice of words is so tricky because if you put, because I used to say in my listings, I still have some that say this, a lot of them, gently owned. I don't even know what that means. I just started using it because somebody else was using it. And then I realized like, I finally got a return where somebody said, this is not gently owned. So they either disagreed with my description of it or they didn't, who knows, but they didn't, their definition of gently was not the same as mine. And there's no right or wrong there. So I have just gotten away from a lot of that stuff, guys. I'm just starting to say, hey, see the photos. And I take photos of everything that looks notable. And if I miss something and they want to send it back and I missed it, I'm going to send them a return label because I missed it. I didn't take a photograph of it. They couldn't tell. And that's happened in a couple cases. Happened with some jeans where somebody said, oh, I didn't realize it had holes in the knees. Well, it was distressing for sure. It was manufacturer put there. I know. But I didn't have a photograph of it. So when they bought them, they didn't know that those were there, and I took them back. So whatever. But yeah, you just got to be really careful with condition with things, I think. Yeah, the back edge of the heel on shoes, yeah, they for sure will wear down. I don't know. I don't have driving shoes, but maybe I'll start doing that. Maybe that'll become my thing, Karin. I'll leave a pair of driving shoes in the car at all times. So I'll just slip into those. And, it's true, though. They do wear down more for sure. And when you're in somewhere like a bigger city where there's a lot of stop and go traffic, you're on those pedals a lot for sure. Absolutely. But yeah, I don't put my heel on the floorboard, though. I don't drive that way, but I know some people do. Let's see here. What else is there? Yeah, conditions different for every person. Absolutely. I mean, you just can't. You're never going to get a buyer, guys, to agree with you on what is an accurate description of condition. They're just going to see it and then they're going to make a decision. Bart Large says, I put an object, an ink pen next to small holes. I never say gently used or anything like that. I just check pre-owned. Yep. I agree with you, Large. I mean, I think that's the way to go. It's pre-owned. Here's the photographs. Here's everything I think is necessary for you to see. And then, and the reality is, guys, and a lot of you who are clothing sellers know this, a lot of people do not even look at all the photos. I get so many questions from buyers who say, hey, do you have a photograph of this? Or is this there? And it's there in a photograph, literally there in the listing. And they just either didn't see it or didn't look. But you've done your part then as a seller, and you're covered. You know, if you took a photograph of it, eBay loves that. eBay loves a lot of photographs, just showing everything, because then there's no dispute over what the item had, you know, and you got to be willing to take some photographs. It's a balance for sure. Let's see. I had a person want to return because it was a different color. Tony, man, I feel your pain. That is a tricky one, because if you don't, you know, I've said it once, I'll say it again. You line up 10 people in a room to look at something that has sort of an ambiguous color, not even ambiguous, just a color, and you're going to get some different descriptions of what that color is, because we all see color a little differently. Now throw in there, was your lighting accurately representing the true color of the item? Are you seeing it correctly? Are you getting your camera oriented correctly? What is the buyer seeing on the other end with their monitor, their screen, their tablet, their phone, whatever? Color, man. I mean, that's a tough one. I mean, some of them are really, really easy to see, but there's others. Like there was a pair of shoes the other day. Karin and I were looking at them. They were, what were those shoes, Karin? They were heels. They were Rockport. They were Rockport heels. And I took them to her and I went, are these blue or black? Because it was a little tricky. We finally decided they were black, looking at them under different light, but it was really tricky to figure out. And, you know, theoretically, you could leave the color out of your description, out of your title, out of your item specifics. But with shoes especially, a lot of buyers are going to want to know the color because they're matching them to whatever they're going to wear. So they're going to ask you, or worse, they're not going to ask you. They're just going to move on to the next one because you don't have it put anywhere in your title, description, or item specifics. I would say in general, if you can, put the color in there. If you're unsure of the color, like orange or red, it's a reddish orange, maybe you leave it blank. But one thing I will say that's good, guys, if you can do, let's say you take 6 photos, or let's say it's 8 photos of a pair of shoes. Now the tag shot inside might be different, but you're taking, you know, like I take about 8 photos. Try to make sure the color looks the same in all of them. You know, even if you don't know what the color exactly is it black, is it blue, whatever. That way, at least it's consistent, because, and you'll run in this with jeans a lot too. I'll see people who will, and this is what happens, like they'll have a pair of jeans and they'll get their camera in really close to show a defect or something, and the color will go crazy because your camera on your phone or whatever you're using can't figure out what it is it's supposed to be focusing on, can't figure out the color. And now all of a sudden, you've got 6 pictures where the color looks like this, and then 1 picture where it looks totally different. And your buyer's confused. They're like, well, is it blue or is it black? I can't tell. And they might ask you, but more often than not, they'll just move on to the next one. You know, and it's tricky. Color is really tricky to get right. And your eyes are not seeing it the same as maybe your buyer's eyes. So it's really, just try to be consistent, like to your eyes, whatever you think the color of that item is. Like when you look at the first photo, look at the second photo. Does the color seem to match? Look at the third photo. Does it match the first 2? Look at the fourth photo. Does it match the first 3? If you're doing that, at least you're being consistent with what the camera is seeing. If you've got 1 or 2 that are off because you changed how far away you were, or the white balance was wrong, you need to think about retaking those photos, because you're just going to confuse your buyer. you're going to confuse them, and you're going to get a return, or you're not going to get a sale, whatever. But it's important to try to get the color consistent between all the photos. Let's see here. I'm trying to see if there was any other questions or good comments. Lots of good questions and comments here today. Brian was saying stain versus discolored or marks. Yeah, that's a good question. Stain versus discolored. Really hard to know sometimes. Sometimes it's better just to take a photo of that area and say, here's a photo. Do with it what you want. Jeans are kind of, with jeans, I'm pretty good about telling if something's intentional or not now. I mean, there's a different way something will look from a manufacturer. Like, let's say it's stained or discolored, and maybe it's got like a dirty look, a grungy look. That dirty, grungy look should be consistent throughout the jean. Anywhere else you see that should look very, very similar. If it sticks out and looks different than all the other areas, that's a stain, almost 100% of the time. So you can kind of use that. I think sometimes it should be consistent throughout the item, whatever sort of discoloring they're doing or coloring they're doing, however you want to look at it. Distressing should be the same way. Like, it should look neat. It's distressed, but it looks neat, like it's neatly done. It's manufactured that way. Whereas if it's a hole, it probably just wore through, and it's going to be jagged. It's going to be irregular size. You know, it's going to be sometimes strands will be loose, whereas in the other distressing on the jeans, sometimes they're not. They're just nice and taut across the quote unquote hole or distressing. So you can kind of do that. But anyway. All right, guys. Well, listen, I think that's going to do it for today's show. We've been about an hour, so thank you very much for coming out. Hit the like button on your way out if you don't mind. Leave me a comment down below. I really appreciate it, or a question. Try to answer all of them. Check out the links in the description down below in this video. You can see all kinds of cool stuff we have there, helpful products and so on, some of the gear we use, spreadsheet, links to other social media that we have, and all kinds of great stuff. So I appreciate it. You guys coming out today. Hope you guys have an awesome weekend. Let's get some sales going. Let's have some fun this weekend. Remember why you like reselling instead of focusing on the reasons you don't, and which is always a good thing. And there are reasons you like it, right? So focus on those this weekend. Try to, you know, improve your sales, improve your store, improve your listings, improve your business model. All those things are well worth it. And we'll continue on this shoe journey to 500. We're going to get there, and we'll see what happens when we do. And it'll be fun. So, all right, guys. Well, that's going to do it for now. So hope you have a great weekend. I will see you again probably on Monday would be my guess. And this is Prof Sales saying good sales to you.